Welcome to Rebuild a Toy.
This is a part of a video series where I document my 1970s vintage Matchbox vehicles. The vehicle you see sitting on our noisy turntable, oh, it's not there. Well, that's because the vehicle that we're going to take a look at today is a special vehicle. For one reason, it's the last vehicle that I have in my vintage 1970s Matchbox collection. So this is the last video that I'll be posting in this series. The other reason that it's special is that this vehicle is still on the card. That's right, it's been sitting on the card since 1976, waiting to be released. And if you're like to collect on the card, if you take a look at the condition of this card, it's pretty bad shape. So no harm in opening this up, and that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to crack it open. The vehicle we're looking at is Black Widow. The other reason that this is special is that this was a gift from John over at autodriven.164. Thank you, John. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit his channel, I encourage you to do so after you watch this video. Just kidding. I'll put a link to it in the show notes below. So this vehicle has an interesting history, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment after I crack it open for you to watch. So here we go. Vintage vehicle. Let's see if I can crack it open. Make it look like I know what I'm doing. Actually, I don't know what I'm doing. I see. Never opened one from this era, so the packaging is slightly different. Oh, smell that 1970s goodness. There we go. All right. Even the noisy turntable had to stop for a moment. Here we go. Let's get going. Alright, there it is. The Black Widow. Out of its packaging. For the first time in 40 plus years. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Nice and shiny. So there were a few variations of this vehicle. Two major variations. We'll talk about that first. The window here, this variation has the black window. There's no window on the sides, it's open and you can see in. It is a right drive vehicle, we'll talk about that in a moment. The other variation had a clear window. But this casting had a number of other variations, and that's what makes this interesting. This vehicle is called Black Widow, as you saw on the package, and I will also show you the base so you can see what it says on the base. A little challenging to read because of oxidization, but you can see it says Black Widow there in the middle. It is a super fast, copyright 1972. So this casting was produced from 1972 through 1977, but not as Black Widow. It was originally released as the Siva Spyder. So, interesting history on the prototype vehicle that this was based on. This is a licensed model. It is not a fantasy car, as I personally assumed it was when I first saw it. The Siva Spyder was produced by Siva Engineering, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but it's a small company and there's not a lot of information on it. Siva Engineering in Great Britain. They produced vehicles during the 1970s. Now, as far as I can tell, they were primarily a coachworks company. So they produced the body, but they did not produce the suspension or the drivetrain for their vehicles. So they were basically a kit car manufacturer. So the Siva Spyder was originally commissioned by a company called Hillman as a GT car. Hillman decided they didn't want it, and so Siva repurposed this as a kit car for Volkswagen Beetle chassis. So you would purchase a Volkswagen Beetle, you would purchase this kit car, and you would end up with something a little bit different than the original Beetle, to be certain. So what I'm going to do is post up a couple of inserted photos of the original Siva Spyder so you can see what it looked like. Matchbox take on it did change the dimensions of a few parts of the vehicle. The original was a little bit shorter, and I will show you here on the casting on the roof. You can see that there are lines there. The original was a gull wing style opening door, so you can see that kind of cut into the die cast there. There's a gull wing. You see the Goodyear on the top. I'm not really sure why Goodyear appears on there, but anyway, and then you can see the Spyder Tampo. This is a Tampo, it is not a sticker. So this is a little bit later model vehicle, and they were using Tampos at this time. So not a sticker. So the original prototype had gull wing doors, and so they depicted that here. It would have been a rear engine, obviously, because it was based on a Volkswagen Beetle. And the Siva Spyder was originally released in 1972 by Matchbox as a dark red vehicle. Had a couple of different variations. This black line here, this stripe, I don't think it served any purpose on the original prototype other than just a design. The original release of this car, it was a dark red color body, and the stripe was silver. They also had a variation where it was black, and then there were a number of other recolors. All of those labeled as Siva Spyder. This blue, light blue vehicle that you see here was released as the Black Widow, and there were no other paint color variations of the Black Widow. This was the only one. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there were some other variations on this particular name, the Black Widow name, but the paint color and the black stripe here were consistent. As were the Tampo, the Goodyear Tampo on the roof, and the Spyder and Webb Tampo on the hood. Or, I'm not sure if you would really call that the hood or the trunk because it was a rear engine car anyway. And probably would have been called the boot or something else because it was made in Great Britain. So the vehicle was produced through 1977. It was not a particularly popular model, and that's probably because the prototype was not a particularly popular model as well. As mentioned, it was a kit car, and it was designed to fit on a Volkswagen Beetle frame. So how many of those were produced? Well, let's just say that Matchbox was much more successful at selling the Siva Spyder than Siva ever was. There were 12 models of the Siva Spyder. I shouldn't say models. There were 12 units total of the Siva Spyder that were ever produced. Matchbox, I think, did much better. So that is our final 1970s vintage Matchbox vehicle from the Rehabilitoy channel, the Black Widow. Thank you, John, for providing this vehicle, and thank you for watching. Bye.